I'm a lawyer. I protect people's rights and I act in the best interest of my client. I act for local suburban people, protecting their rights and their interest, getting equality, helping them to get justice in the suburbs.
In southwestern Sydney, battles are fought large and small, but Dan Phuong Nguyen always sets out to win them. A local lawyer of more than 30 years, it's hard for her not to be noticed while walking through Cabramatta.
I'm just, a down the road firm. I'm literally down the road and I do everything that's local.
It's been an extraordinary rise for Dan, who at 12 fled Vietnam by boat in 1977.
This little boat on a big sea, there were a lot of people on the boat and lots of crying, lots of people being scared, screaming, shouting. And every time we saw a boat nearby, we would scream SOS. We would write on any piece of cloth that we could find. We would wave just to get their attention.
After a month in a Malaysian refugee camp, she arrived in Australia with her parents and 5 siblings.
I came as a little refugee girl who had absolutely no English skills. The biggest challenge, I guess, was language. And then, throughout the years, I learned English. I went to uni and I did law, and here I am. Hello, Jason.
Dan.
Good morning.
How are you?
Come on in.
Dan now has a small empire, with her headquarters at her house in Campsie, complete with guards at the door.
I think they're a ton each. I had to use a crane to put it into place. I started off as a sole practitioner, one-man band, doing everything. Sometimes I've seen clients that come to me and tell me a story and say, oh no, I want to plead guilty because I can't deal with the law, I don't know what to do, I don't have the money. So there's the injustice, there's the disadvantaged.
Dan's work went global in late 2019 when she got a phone call from a long-time client, Trang.
She was very scared, she was desperate, she needed help.
Trang's husband, Chau Van Kham, had travelled from Sydney to Vietnam in early 2019, but he failed to return to Australia. Kham is a member of the pro-democracy group Viet Thanh, legal in Australia but branded terrorists in Vietnam. Vietnamese police arrested Kham on terrorism charges, accusing him of plotting to overthrow the government.
To an Australian lawyer, he hadn't done anything. He hadn't committed any act of terrorism.
In a trial that's said to have lasted hours and with little evidence, a judge sentenced Kham to 12 years in prison.
For a 71-year-old man to be convicted and sentenced to 12 years jail in a Vietnamese jail was almost a death sentence for him. Even hearing the sentence, my first fear was that he would not survive it.
In Sydney, Trang prayed for her husband's safe return.
Tôi rất buồn và muốn xỉu và khóc rất nhiều. Và thì lúc đó tôi cũng lo lắng nhiều về ông xã tôi ở Việt Nam, không biết là tình hình sức khỏe của ông như thế nào. Tại vì trong người ổng có bệnh á. Tại vì tôi nghĩ là nếu mà không được tất cả ở ngoài hỗ trợ và đấu tranh cho chồng tôi được ra sớm, mà cứ ở trong đó thì là tôi sẽ không gặp được.
Vietnam is a one-party communist state, where speaking against the government can land you in jail.
He was convicted of terrorism, but there was no due process. There was no evidence that he had committed, violent activity or plotted any violent activity whatsoever. And in his case, the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention had ruled that his detention was arbitrary.
After Kham's sentencing in 2019, Dan and Trang went to Canberra and joined human rights groups to lobby the Australian government to fight for his release.
I went everywhere. I knocked on every doors and I talked to anybody that would talk to me about it. 2021 was a low point for me, and I was really scared in that year that his case was forgotten and that he may never come home. I kept going. I never gave up.
Well, Chau Van Kham's lawyer, Dan, I was in touch with her, right from the beginning, soon after he was arrested, and she's a powerhouse. I mean, she really worked day and night to provide support to the family, to be in contact also with the lawyer in Vietnam, and to also be in contact with human rights organisations like Human Rights Watch that were doing our best to raise attention about Chau Van Kham's plight.
4 years later, the Australian government reached a prisoner transfer agreement with Vietnam to release Kham on humanitarian grounds.
This matter was very high-level government negotiations.
Hello, sir. Welcome home. Great to have you home.
And it was, as the government put it, careful advocacy at the highest level.
Now back in Sydney with his family, Kham is showing few signs of his ordeal. Speaking to 730, he admits he entered Vietnam with false identification to meet other activists, but he rejects Vietnam's allegations of terrorism.
Trong phiên tòa đó, tôi có rất nhiều lần phản đối những cái chi tiết của bản án và tôi cực lực là nói tôi không phải là khủng bố. Ngay từ bước đầu cuộc điều tra đến khi tôi ra khỏi nhà tù, thật sự tôi chưa bao giờ sợ hãi trong cái hoàn cảnh đó. Tôi nghĩ tôi đã làm chuyện phải và họ ở trong một cái chính quyền làm sai trái.
Here in Sydney's southwest, members of the Vietnamese community are celebrating Chau Van Kham as a hero. His release from prison is seen as a huge victory for their lobbying efforts and for the greater cause of human rights and democratic freedoms.
We are joyful and wholeheartedly, our warmest heart to welcome him back. Welcome to the free world.